Big questions. Kyrie Irving, what will happen with him?
I think likely back to Dallas. I think when you look at what happened last offseason with losing Jalen Brunson, you go out and trade for him in February. You can ill afford to let him walk out the door here. And I think especially where the market dictates, outside of Houston, Dallas is really the only place that can give him that long-term contract.
Next up would be Fred VanVleet, a very attractive player. Where do we see him winding up?
I think certainly he opted out of his contract in Toronto. There are teams out there. There's about 7 teams. Houston has $62 million. There's teams like Detroit, Indiana, San Antonio. The list goes on. I think it's interesting. Teams like Houston have to spend because in the new collective bargaining agreement, you got to spend 90% of the salary cap. So he'll be a prime target outside of Irving and Harden.
And then another one to watch is Harden. What do we know about James Harden?
Well, I think certainly with the direction Houston goes in, and that's where I have a hard time seeing them going out and spending $47 million on one player. That's a team that needs multiple players there, and if that's the case, all signs lead back to Philadelphia.
All right, so let me get Woj in here. You and I have been talking on Countdown for months now about James Harden and the very real interest he might have in going back to Houston. They made some moves at the end of their season there in Philly, namely the coaching change that getting rid of Doc Rivers was perceived by some as being a way to try and keep James Harden there and happy. What should we be thinking about with Harden?
Yeah, listen, I think the pathway to Philadelphia to go back to get, I think, the most guaranteed money, the most years, they have the most to lose by not having him on their team next year. As Bobby detailed, you know, Houston can do a lot of different things with all their salary cap space, including Fred VanVleet, including James Harden, players like Dylan Brooks, Brook Lopez. They can fill some needs in Houston with the young players they have. Ime Udoka is a player that guys really like playing for. That's an attraction there. But Philadelphia needs to have James Harden back if they're going to try to contend in the East. They weren't far off last year. If Joel Embiid doesn't have that leg injury in the playoffs, they might very well beat Boston. And if they do, like, they may have very well ended up in the NBA Finals.
Yeah.
They weren't that far off. Nick Nurse comes in with the Sixers. I certainly think Philadelphia is still very formidable with James Harden.
It's a fascinating spot to be in because people like us, we can just watch it from the outside and say, oh, that's not going to work. They need to make some sort of change. But you need to have another option to go to. The way it ended for them was so frustrating, Big Perk, right? I mean, it was right there in their grasp at home in that fourth quarter against Boston. And not only didn't it go their way, but no one seemed to like what they did offensively there. And Harden, as unfortunately has frequently happened, did not play big for them when they needed it most. So do you believe you run it back with Harden and Embiid and that group with a new coach? Can that team win the East next year?
Well, you have no choice because, one, it will look bad on Daryl Morey because he fired and had a decision in firing Doc Rivers because of James Harden. Because let's be honest, James Harden, he quit. He quit in Game 7 on Doc Rivers to the point where Sam Cassell actually had to go to Doc and said, hey, man, get him out the game. And so you actually made this firing Doc Rivers because of James Harden. You got to make it work, or it's a bad look. Joel Embiid didn't want Doc gone. Joel under Doc Rivers, 2-time scoring champ, league MVP. He didn't want Doc gone. It was because of James and his style of play. So if you're Daryl Morey, you have to bring James Harden back.
And is that a team, I'll ask you again, we look at the Celtics, they made the acquisition of Porzingis. We're going to talk about them in a minute. Milwaukee, if they bring their guys back. You got some other teams, Cleveland, whoever else you like in that Eastern Conference, and obviously the Heat. Can the Sixers, with the centerpieces of Harden and Embiid, win the Eastern Conference?
Well, I think Miami woke the world up. And if you wasn't watching the Miami Heat this year, if you're like other teams that didn't make it far in the playoffs or didn't make the playoffs at all and saw that you could win by just having heart and putting pieces around guys, like Miami willed themselves to victory as far as just having heart and playing hard until all of a sudden they got outmatched by a more talented team in the Denver Nuggets. If I'm Philly, I'm looking at the Miami Heat and I'm like, I got better pieces, right? You'll take Joel Embiid over Bam Adebayo, right? You'll take Tyrese Maxey over a guy like Gabe Vincent or even a guy like Caleb Martin. So, yeah, they have the pieces to actually win. It's just about if they're going to want to do it. We talked about it offset about how Michael Porter Jr. and Jokic, how they upped their game when it mattered the most on the defensive side of things.
Yeah.
Nobody was looking at those guys like defenders, but in the postseason, when they got challenged and they wanted it, they stepped up to the plate.
Final word, Woj.
Listen, what you're seeing so many teams who believe they are close, they have a chance. You saw that, I think, in this postseason, that there's something of parity in the league. I think it's good for the league, and it allows teams like Philly to say, we're not going to try to take a step back. We're going to keep going for it.
Look, there's two obvious pieces of evidence to that. One, we've had 5 different champions in the last 5 years. 2, we had play-in teams make long, deep playoff runs this year, including one of them that went all the way to the NBA Finals. So we will see. Let me get to the Celtics here, because this was a trade that was made earlier in the week, and I found it fascinating. Celtics, Wizards, and Grizzlies have finalized a 3-team trade that sent Kristaps Porzingis to Boston, Marcus Smart to Memphis, and Tyus Jones to Washington. Porzingis coming off a career-high 23 points a game. We talked about it at great length yesterday. Zach Lowe had some concerns about this move for Boston.
I have some questions about how this fit is going to work with the Celtics. Number one, I think Marcus Smart is the best passer on a team that does not have a lot of great passers in Boston. That's one of the reasons their crunch time offense has melted down. Number two, I love the fit of Porzingis as a stretch center. Who's closing games for them? Those are all questions. How does he fit into their defensive scheme?
So Porzingis to Boston, as Tim Legler rejoins us here. It's a fascinating topic, because I've had such a wide disparity of opinion on this show since the trade happened. Legler, what word would you use to describe your reaction to the trade?
Yeah, listen, I liked it. I did. I think the things felt a little bit stale in Boston. I think the biggest thing they're going to miss with Marcus Smart is his voice. There's no question that's very difficult to replace, because I don't think it's necessarily super vocal group. And he's the one guy whose voice resonates in the locker room and on the court. Obviously, defensive prowess. But Kristaps Porzingis finally stayed on the court long enough for us to see what he's capable of doing in the course of a regular season. And he's not just a one-end-of-the-floor guy, and he's not just a pick-and-pop three-point shooter. He takes a lot of threes. He's one of the better 7-foot-plus three-point shooters this league has seen. But he can do more than that, and he gives you other options and ways to run your offense as a guy that can operate in the post, shooting the ball with turnaround jump shots over certain matchups. He's also an elite-level rim protector. This is a great backline defender, so now you can play a bigger lineup without having to sacrifice everything offensively the way that you do when you have Robert Williams on the court. So I like the move for Boston. They were exposed last year in the playoffs a number of different ways over the course of 3 rounds. I think Kristaps Porzingis rejuvenates them coming off an incredibly disappointing end to their season.
He likes it. Big Perk, why are you making that face?
Because I hate it.
Why do you hate it?
Because all last year we kept talking about, including myself, everybody was talking about how Boston had the most complete team, which they did. And this is why you don't take, when you have an opportunity to win a championship, for granted, and you maximize it. That's one thing. The second thing is, after the Denver Nuggets won, they talked about how they had patience for us letting guys grow and letting Jamal Murray get healthy. Well, I mean, we're talking about a team that has been to multiple conference finals, that just went to the finals 2 years ago, and we're talking about the heart and soul of this team. Porzingis hasn't shown us nothing on the big stage, or even a stage at all when it comes to the postseason. So when I think about Marcus Smart and I think about the swag, I think this was a move that was made because Joe Mazzulla and Marcus Smart couldn't see eye to eye. And we think, I go all the way back from when Ime Udoka was suspended and they put Joe Mazzulla in place. He never really gained that locker room and had that voice in that locker room. And I also said this, Greeny, when Damon Stoudemire took the job, I believe, at Georgia Tech, I said that was going to be a huge blow for the Celtics, because he was actually that voice that was able to be the middleman between Mazzulla and the team. And what happened is, this had nothing to do with Marcus Smart and what he brought on the floor, but everything to do with him and Joe Mazzulla not seeing eye to eye. But I hate it. Tommy Heinsohn is rolling over in his grave right now. We're talking about a guy that's an all-time Tommy Heinsohn Award winner in Marcus Smart. the identity that was there, the diving on the floor for loose balls, defensive player of the year. You know what you're getting out this man.
It's fascinating. So you're talking about more the impact than the actual on the floor, what exactly they bring, because you're not questioning Porzingis as a player. If he's your third best player, which is what he is in Boston now, it's pretty good.
I just want to know what type of style they're going to play.
Yeah.
Right? So you have Jason Tatum. If they re-sign Jaylen Brown, you have Derek White on the perimeter. You have Malcolm Brogdon. I mean, like, so my thing is, in a game that's based on pick and rolls and isolations, I'm just trying to understand it. Okay, you have Robert Williams, one of the most athletic guys in the game for us at the center position. I'm just trying to see how is this going to fit.
Well, we're going to find out when the season begins. One of the two big pieces of the offseason has now come and gone. Free agency is around the corner, so we reserve the right to update the list after that. But at this moment, we asked you to put together your NBA power rankings as we stand right now. Who's at number 5?
Well, hold on. Before I start, Green, this is my first time ever doing a list with you. So this is how it goes.
Go.
This is not your list.
Right.
This is not the world list. The key word is this is Perk's list.
Correct. Your list.
So let that be known, all right? And coming in at number 5, bam! Put it up here, the Los Angeles Lakers. Western Conference Finals last year, Anthony Davis, LeBron James. We saw what Austin Reeves could do. I think he's a rising star. Rui has found his niche, working out with Phil Handy every single day. Look, the Lakers are going to be back. They're going to have a full training camp together. I feel like they will add some veteran pieces. Coming at number 4, bam! Let's bring it up again. The Milwaukee Bucks, right? Hopefully they re-sign Chris Middleton and Brook Lopez, but you still got Giannis Antetokounmpo, one of the best players in the game today, if not the best player in the world. You have Drew Holiday still over there. Bobby Portis is locked in. One could say he was going to win 6 Man of the Year. I love the new coaching hire. Now we going to number 3. Bam! Here we go again. Number 3, the Sacramento Kings.
Yes.
We slept on them last year. I would not do it again this season. De'Aaron Fox is a rising young superstar in this game. Was the most clutch player in crunch time. Sabonis, his numbers was ridiculous. He's going to continue to get better. Keegan Murray, first good rookie season. He's going to get better. Mike Brown has the culture. Greeny, help me out. Number 2, let me hear it.
Bam!
You got to do it with a little bit more emphasis.
Bam!
There we go. Here we go. The defending champs, the Nuggets. Why they at number 2? Because Bruce Brown just opted out. You're right, they're going to have to pay him a bag. I know Jokic is the best player in the world right now. Jamal Murray's shown us what he's capable of doing on the big stage, and he did it in great fashion. But it's hard to keep a team together. I know Bruce Brown was talking about just y'all wanted one more year until that money come running. Here we go, number 1. Let me get it, Greeny.
Bam!
Bam! Bring it. The Phoenix Suns. I don't give a damn what nobody say. You have Devin Booker, Bradley Beal, and Kevin Durant, 3 of the most prolific, efficient scorers in the game today. Yes, DeAndre Ayton is still on the roster, but guess what? They got time. They got time. We're still in June, so they got time to put in pieces or make other moves. But I'm riding with Devin Booker, Kevin Durant, and Bradley Beal. We're talking about 3 All-NBA players.
Now, and
this is my list.
Thank you for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.